Morning, I'm Mark Kressel. I am the Development Director with the Omaha Conservatory of Music. I've been here about 3 years. The conservatory teaches over 2,000 students every week, ranging from age 1 to age 93.
That's awesome. How long have you said you've been there 3 years?
3 years last week, actually, yes.
Wow. Happy anniversary.
Thanks.
Yeah. And you also took care of your wife.
Yes, I did.
So you,
My wife had cancer for the last 5.5 years. She fought valiantly, but finally succumbed this last summer.
yeah, that was a long journey.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about music for caregivers and the people that they're caring for, because I think it's such a big part of many people's lives. And
Yes.
there's so many benefits to it. And so I just wanted to get your input on how caregivers could be using, like, what is the benefit and how could they be using music in their homes?
Well, there's a few things, and I can speak from two angles. I can speak from a personal angle as a caregiver, which I have been for the last year or so, and I can also speak from a kind of a more clinical standpoint, just what research has borne out. And for a caregiver, music is something, and I used it a lot. I'm a big music person,
Mhm.
and music, I could control my moods. It would reduce anxiety. Dealing with someone who is battling cancer can be pretty stressful.
Yeah.
I used music, and it'd be different types of music. It was almost like a prescription with me. It would be, if I was feeling pretty stressed out, then something classical would most likely calm me down and things like that. If I was feeling, like I was running out of energy and starting to feel that I couldn't keep up, I went with something a little bit more upbeat, and it kind of energized me and charged me and things like that. Luckily, my wife was also a big music person, and so we would
Mhm.
listen a lot of times together. And it was something that, from her standpoint, you know, uh, improved her mental health a lot. When you are dying, I can't imagine because I've never faced it, but to have to deal with that every day, you wake up in the morning knowing that your days are numbered,
Yeah.
and music was one of her outlets, and music was a way that she kept herself calm and kept herself relaxed and kept herself grounded. I slept better. I would put something kind of mild on in the evenings before I go to sleep, and I would find myself sleeping better. I mean, the benefits of music from a personal standpoint are quite incredible. Then there's also clinical data. It's interesting that supports everything I just said.
Yeah.
That it can lower blood pressure, it can reduce anxiety, it can allow you to sleep better, it can change your moods. I mean, there are research studies, going back a number of years that are also very current that kind of confirm the value of music.
So I think a little bit of planning can go a long way, because I think when you're in the thick of it with someone in that moment, it can be hard to know what you need. I mean, I know around here we talk a lot about just your baseline human needs, like, okay, am I thirsty? Have I eaten? That sort of thing.
Yes.
Um, but so I don't know how to help people trigger that thought, like, maybe I should turn on some music.
That's an interesting angle to look at, and I've never thought of it in that terms because I was always able to um, kind of keep up with that type of thing, mainly because I was doing all the cooking in the house, and so I was
Mm-hmm.
feeding her and making sure that she was well fed, and therefore feeding myself. You know, I guess the times that come to mind would perhaps be sometimes when I'm maybe starting to push the burnout stage a little bit, where I've been at the office all day long. I've been working and doing
Yeah.
my job, and I come home and it's you change hats and you suddenly put on the nurse's hat and you start dealing with that. And it can be easy to burn out, although I was highly motivated, of course, because it was my wife. And so I never felt like I did, but I did reach points to where I started to feel a little bit overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I remembered that I needed to take care of myself. And there are a few ways to do it. With me, there's a couple of things I can do to relax. One involves my camera. I'm a photographer and I
Hmm.
can take a few pictures, but probably the primary one I went with was music, because music will always affect me every
Yeah.
time.
Well, and it's like a time machine, right? So you'll hear a song and all of a sudden it's
Absolutely.
1981 and you're in that place with those people
Yes.
having a experience. Yeah.
And it's not just that. I just had this conversation with somebody the other day, is that I heard a song. It was a commercial on television, but it was a song that took me back to my childhood. And it not only took me to a very specific point in time, to that I remembered all the visuals, but I remembered the smells of that time. It was at a lake. And I remembered the smell of the water, and I
Wow.
remembered the smell of the barbecue, and it brought it back so vividly. And it was just a song that I probably haven't heard in 35, 40 years.
So you saying that reminds me that we were sitting around the dinner table one night when you talked about commercials, and my mother-in-law has dementia, and she currently lives in an assisted living memory care. Um, and it wasn't, I mean, it really wasn't that long ago that we did this, but we started singing the O'Reilly jingle. The oh, right. And each of us had a part, right? So I don't even know what prompted this at our family dinner table. It's hysterical. So we were going around the table, but she was able to actually engage with that and like do her part in a timely fashion. So, like you were mentioning the song that was played in the commercial kind of
Yeah.
jettisoned you back.
Well, and and having come from, before being here, of course, I worked in senior care, and also in support of a memory care residence and in a nursing home. And we had, just one example I love is, we had a woman in the nursing home that was, I'm guessing, mid to upper 80s, in a wheelchair, completely nonverbal.
Mm.
She had been there probably a year that I had been there, and never heard her speak a word or anything like that. And it was, it's sad, because with a lot of people in nursing care, simply an existence.
Yeah.
It's I exist today. I don't live, but I exist. My
Mm-hmm.
heart beats, I eat, and I go to sleep, and then I do it again. And I would see her so often. They'd have her in the TV room, and she'd have her head down, and I never saw her face. She had this long hair, and then one day I went upstairs, and they had moved a piano. Somebody had donated a piano. They moved the piano to that floor, and she indicated somehow to a nurse that she wanted to go look at the piano, and they pulled her up to it, and she started playing. And I'm telling you, it she played incredibly. I mean, I work in a music conservatory. This was a woman, and we later found out she taught piano lessons for 40 years.
Oh my gosh.
And suddenly she not only played, but then she turned, because I went and sat next to her on the bench and was watching her. And I just said, "That is incredible." And she turned to me and said, "Thank you." First words I'd heard in a year from her.
Oh, that gives me
But
chills.
music can have that effect on memory care people. In fact, we used to get little iPods, and we would put music. We didn't know necessarily what a resident listened to in the 40s, perhaps, or in the 50s, but we'd pull like popular music from that period of time, and we'd play it for them. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, especially with dementia residents, if they were agitated or highly energized or things like that, playing them something from the Glenn Miller Orchestra, for example, or even something from Elvis, would
Yeah.
suddenly change their mood. And it goes back to, it can reduce anxiety, it can reduce your blood pressure, it can change your mood, and it can help sleep better. So I mean, music is absolutely a therapeutic thing.
Well, and I think based on those studies, what they found was it's the eras of someone's age between age 20 to 40 are the most impactful because those are such strong developmental years
Mhm.
in adulthood. So, just if you're a caregiver at home, to think about not just your family member, your loved one that you're taking care of. What years? I think that's such a great idea. What years were they in their 20s to 40s? And then also for yourself,
Sure.
because it's interesting. If you asked me to produce a playlist right now, I think I would struggle to come up with some favorite songs. But I think if I looked them up, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that one.
See, I wouldn't have any trouble, but all the songs would be from the 80s, which was when I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
And, you know, because that was a period of time where I was really deep into music and things like that. And I still listen to that all the time. I mean, that's kind of my go-to for relaxing. If you said, you know, create a playlist of music that's been recorded in the last 10 years, I wouldn't hold your breath, because I don't
Yeah.
think I could find you 10 songs that I've known that have been recorded in the last 10 years.
But some like Steely Dan or Linda Ronstadt or
Absolutely,
something, you're gonna
absolutely.
hit the mark.
Yep.
I think this is so powerful, Mark. I think this is such a great conversation because caregivers at home really are struggling for resources. And to your point, we don't want to just survive our days, we want to thrive within them. And so, how can we provide a great life experience for the people that we're taking care of?
Absolutely. Well, and you know, the music part of the brain is one of the last things to go in dementia and Alzheimer's disease. There are so many studies and there are so many examples of people who were really advanced in Alzheimer's, that music somehow kind of awakened them to some extent, and what have you. And I mean, I've got a good friend here in Omaha whose mother, she's been a singer, and she's been a singer her whole life and lived on the coast for years and years, but her mother had developed Alzheimer's disease.
Mhm.
So she moved back here to help care for her. And this woman happens to be a blues singer, and she is phenomenal. And she'll sing Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald and performs. I've seen her perform a number of times.
Wow.
She sent me a video a few weeks ago, I guess probably been a few months ago, where she can't see her mother now because she's in a nursing home. She's in a memory care home, and her mother has advanced Alzheimer's disease and is very you know, nonverbal, doesn't communicate at all, and that. And so she sent me this video of standing outside a window with her mother sitting inside that window in a wheelchair, and her mother was like this.
Wow.
And she sang an old song that she used to, a gospel tune that she used to sing in their house, and you could see my friend's reflection in the glass and her mother, right. It was one of the most moving things I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
I don't know that her mother reacted to it, but I can tell you therapeutically for the daughter, it was an enormous thing
Yeah.
to be able to share that gift with her mother.
What a great idea. Even if geographically you can't be together, record yourself singing a song
Yes.
and send it to the care facility. There's technology within the building. Send it to the care facility and they can play it for them.
Yes. I just spoke to somebody, I mean, seriously, last night, a friend of mine that works in a nursing home, and not a caregiver, as more dietitian type, you know. So, but like everybody that works in a nursing home, you become close to some of the residents and things like
Sure.
that. And that was certainly the case for her. And she talked about how one of her favorite residents was failing health wise, you know, was
Mhm.
advanced, and how she just sat with her and sang to her. She's a singer too. And she sat and sang with her yesterday. And she said, and you could just see the peace it brought her. And she goes, she goes, I can't describe the feeling it brought me. And so,
Yeah.
you know, the benefit is not just for the elder person; it is also for the caregiver, because when you do that and you see that you're having an impact, it can soothe your soul pretty good too.
So powerful. I feel like you've given a lot of really good suggestions and information. So if someone has a musical instrument in their home and it's something that anybody has taught or played regularly, try and re-engage them in that.
Absolutely.
That 20 to 40 time period age span can be really impactful. And I loved your suggestion of just looking up what were the most popular
Sure.
songs. People
Because
still
the chances are, whether or not it was their favorite song, they knew the song.
sure.
You know,
And
I
it'll
hear songs
engage
from
them
the
in some way.
70s. I hear songs from the 70s, my high school and college years, you know, I never had the record, but I hear it on the radio and I know every word because
Right.
I heard it so many times back then.
Yeah. There's so many platforms now on how to
Yes.
access music, and YouTube is there's a lot of stuff out on YouTube that's free,
Yes.
so you can just search them out.
And it used to be, like I said, we used iPods, and now you don't need that. I mean, you have Spotify, or you have you know, you have these music services that you can do for free.
Right.
and create a playlist of your own. And, and again, and especially in memory care, I find that if a person is agitated and things like that, music is the most likely solution to calming them, because
Wow.
music kind of reaches a part of their brain, and it kind of soothes their soul a bit, and they tend to react to it.
Are your teachers at the conservatory doing lessons by Zoom or in person right now, or a
Both.
combination?
Both. We offer the students and the teachers the option. If you want to come in, like I take piano lessons, and I
Yeah.
do them here. I do them in person. I did them virtually for 3 months, and that went actually fine. But we have on campus about 800 students a week, and I would guess that probably it's about a half and half at this point between virtual and in-person lessons.
Okay. I have several friends in their 40s that have started piano lessons,
Yep, I started at 61.
which is so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I was in a meeting this morning, and going over through numbers. I'm the fundraiser person, and you go through the numbers, and you got a to-do list, and there's 30 things on it. And I'm looking at my watch, and I see that you and I are going to be talking in about 15 minutes. And I thought, I got 15 minutes. So I went up to a studio, and I sat down at the piano, and I played for about 5 minutes, and totally chilled me out. And I came back down here, and now I'm here.
It's a good
I do that
reset.
2 or 3 times a day.
Wow. It's a good reset.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's hard for caregivers to get out a lot of times. So I love the idea that they could potentially do something for themselves virtually, where they're still in their home
Absolutely.
with their family member. So, well, thank you for
Absolutely.
your time. I think this was a great discussion,
My pleasure.
and I really appreciate it.
You bet.
All right.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Mark.